ADHD's a biscuit.
The new MD7 full tower PC case from Fantex creates the perfect picture frame to show off your system. Insane airflow and direct GPU cooling creates the best possible environment for modern high-power GPUs, while the internal and external cable management systems make building and maintaining your system extremely user-friendly. The integrated DRGB lighting is controlled by an included dual-channel DRGB controller with all new effects, allowing you to make your system uniquely yours. To see the full spec list and options, follow the link in the description below.
All right, Jay's the captain again. I want you to do me a favor. If you agree with what I'm about to say, I want you to pause this video and hit like, if you think ADD is a bitch, because I sure as hell do. All right, so I'm gonna kind of take you guys along for a ride on some things like that I've been working on, kind of want to work on, haven't been able to finish working on. Look, if there's one thing that I can tell you right now that I hate most, it's ADHD, because I'm like the king of starting something and not finishing it. And I don't like that. So anyway, you guys know recently I had surgery. I actually had a gallbladder removal surgery. I had an extremely infected gallbladder that was, well, in danger of rupturing and turning septic, which would have been like a 95% fatality rate had that happened. So fortunately, it didn't get to that point. But I let my health go in terms of taking care of the gallbladder for years. And I didn't know it was gallbladder until lately. But anyway, now that it's removed and I feel recovered and I'm back to not having gallstone attacks every single month, some of which lasting more than 24 hours, causing severe physical side effects, I feel back to my somewhat normal self, which means I can really take a look around and realize how much like just overall the health issues have caused me to not follow so many things through. Like the Tony Hawk build. A lot of you guys have been like, where the hell is the Tony Hawk build? So because of my health, and that was like at the height of when I really started investigating what was going on, the Tony Hawk build was something that I basically reached back out to Stoney and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to complete this build in any sort of a timely manner for you. It's already been far too long. This was months ago, I talked to him about this and he was like, hey, no problems, 100%, I get it. I told him I still wanna complete the build and if they wanna take it, they can take it. But I didn't want them waiting on me. So he went ahead and bought a PC for Tony Hawk like he said he was gonna do. But I still really want to finish that build because that concrete technique I was coming up with is a lot of fun. But there's a lot of things I still need to finish around here. Let's kind of take a quick tour and then we'll get some actual build footage here of me working on this white PC you guys have seen from my best friend. So yeah, she has something in this video other than Jay coming up with an excuse. So I know a lot of you have been like, where's the EBJ tribute build? Well, here it is right here. Collecting dust, sitting behind crap. Part of the thing I was waiting for on this was EK was saying that they would send me gold fittings that match the plating of the gold water block, which I thought would be perfect. Unfortunately, communication amongst EK is not the greatest of the sponsors that we work with. So I'm probably gonna move on to silver or stainless to kind of match the hardware here, just so I don't have to wait for them anymore. That way I can get this done. Because this is gonna end not just being a tribute build, but my workstation build that I'm gonna be using. So this is my build for here that I'm still needing to finish. This stuff right here, as you can see, these big old boxes, is another Track Racer TRX racing rig, just like I have here at the studio, but this is for my home. I bought this one. This was not sponsored. I purchased this, and I just have not had the energy or the time to take the one at home apart, the Ubuntu Revolution, that's what it's called, so that I can get this one there and put it together. Not to mention, while I was recovering, there's no way I was gonna be able to lift this, and I did not have the just energy to even try and do it leading up to surgery. But we're starting to kind of get into our old ways again and collecting crap. I mean, look at the amount of stuff we have on the shelves again already, considering the fact that we had that purge last summer. We got rid of like 3/4 of the studio's collected hardware, and here we are again. But anyway, I have plans for this area. Again, hit like if you've heard that before. This right here is the shelving that came out of the inside studio there, the indoor set. And we decided to, instead of putting knickknacks and crap on there, this is like the water cooling shelf. So it started being accumulated with water cooling gear. The problem is I have more gear than these shelves will hold. I probably need to get another one, put it on the end, scoot the toolbox down, get it organized. But here's the thing. I have aspirations. Not to be confused with any sort of a health condition, although having aspirations does sound like a health concern. I've got this belt sander that I use quite often when I'm doing my rigid tube stuff. I've got, well, the table saw I don't really need, but I've got the bandsaw, jigsaw down there, which is not great, but you know what? It allows me to cut acrylic and stuff when I need to. The air compressor is just there. The SMA8, I think I might resurrect in some way. Anyway, this is just turned into a catch-all. It just collects garbage and doesn't do anything. So I've got my drill press over here just out of the way, currently sitting on top of my transformer. That's not safe or whatever. I've started sort of, this drawer was so full of stuff you couldn't even see the bottom of it. So I got rid of a lot of the crap that was in there. I'm gonna get trays and stuff to organize my toolboxes. But then this toolbox, I'm gonna wheel it over here underneath the workbench. That way I have tools right here in front of me when I'm working, so I'm not going back and forth and back and forth. Probably get rid of that little Husky that has nothing but paint cans in the bottom for my spray paint stuff. And then what I'm gonna more than likely do is get another workbench right here and probably go ahead and mount a rail into the concrete and have overhead cabinets there to put all the paints and stuff in. So I have another place to have like drill press mounted and belt sander. Where is it? I don't even know where it's at right now. Oh yeah, like my vise isn't even mounted down to anything. So then I could have the parts washing station like always up and running and ready to go. I could even have like, come up with a pipe bending section where all the pipe bending tools are in the same thing. You know what I mean? So there's just lots of stuff I wanna do. I need to get more tool space too, because I have more tools like hand tools and with all the taps and dies and stuff I've got now. I'll probably, since I'm gonna get this floor cleaned up without stuff under there, I will probably end up putting toolboxes under each one of these workbenches, get a shop light maybe that hangs out over top. That way I'm directly lighting the workspace. And then I'll have an area that will allow me to be able to more efficiently get some stuff done. Anyways, efficiently getting stuff done. You guys have already seen the videos of me finally figuring out how to properly drill and tap acrylic without damaging it. This is my best friend's build. He is currently on vacation. I would love to get this build done for him by the time he's back. So let's go ahead now and try and see if we can get some more tubing bent. All right, so an area I really think I'd like to try and get at least handled today is this lower area. I've already showed you guys in the other vlog, I've had to come up with this like multiple 90 setup here just to get it up out of the lower fittings, because EK put the lower fittings so low, when you do a 360 to fill out this space like this, it would push them straight out into the rad and hit the fans. So I've got a 90 into a 90 into a 90, so it's like a out, up, out, left. And I don't have a problem with using a lot of fittings in an area like that. The thing is, it's got to attach to, as you can see right here, where are you at? There we go. I've got my fitting right there. So it's got to come up and over the fans to fit in there. So I'm probably going to remove this fan because I need to be able to more easily access the fitting over here. But by leaving these two on here means that I'll know where the height is, because that's where I have to clear. But this will just allow me to be able to get my hand in there. So let me get this fan off, which I have to take off all three, because remember they connect together because it's a Lee and Lee uni-fan. And then we can start to get that figured out. And I'm probably gonna have to flip this around the other way, because this is the side where if you look at where all the fittings and stuff are, here's my fittings. The pogo pins are on this side, which means this is where the wiring would be by the tubing, and I don't want the wiring to be by the tubing. I think I want it to be on the other end by the reservoir. One thing I want to point out, and when I did my review of these Hardware Lab radiators, is I didn't like these small tapered head screws because they could push through. I added a washer to it, but it just looks terrible. Now, one of the reasons why I'm like a screw slut, basically I keep every screw that's ever come through here, is because I then am left with every now and then finding gems like this. Now these are a hex head. They're flathead instead of tapered, but the problem is that those will still, they're still a small head. So I've got these. These are just, it won't focus, there we go. Tapered head, not tapered head, flathead Phillips, but it's got like a built-in washer in it. So I've got to mount these rads down both in the bottom and in the top. So I'm gonna replace these screws up here with the new ones that I found, and then I'm gonna mount the bottom one down. Otherwise, if it's just floating in there, then I can't get the tube lined up properly. So there's a stabilized shot of what they look like. They've got kind of like a built-in washer, which is kind of nice. So I'm gonna replace the screws with those. Okay, so now you can see with that fan removed, I can access that fitting easily. These two fans are still here because I need to be able to use them to get my height of the tube correct. Let's work on this guy. Oh, and on a side note, even though you won't be able to see it, I mean, I know they're there. So the new screws up there look so much nicer than they did before. And just knowing that they're there makes me feel better about it. So other things that are kind of complicated on this build is because I'm using the active backplate, you can't get to the tab to release the graphics card. Because I'm thinking the card out, it'll be easier to work on the bottom. So now I'm having to use a plastic tool to kind of like try and get down in there and release the tab. This is not going well. This is where, as much as I'm not happy with Asus right now, their little push button retention system is so nice to have. Oh my goodness, see, it's just, So to get it off, I've got to undo the screws, support the card, get it in at like an angle right there, push it down, and then I can release it. Now, one thing I do like about this case is the fact that there's no cross pieces on here, which one means none of them will interfere with your HDMI or display port. I'm sure we've all seen how sometimes they hit those cross pieces. But that means, when I'm getting ready to do a bend to try and see where a 90 lines up, I can actually have it go through the case like this, and then I can kind of see it from all angles. So that's nice. Just how the front, like this front piece came off, made it super easy to work up here in this area. That makes it super easy to work down there in that area. So as I've already mentioned, if we look down this long ways, you can see how the tube actually does not line up with the fitting down there at the end. So you can see that right there. It does not line up, it's off to the right. So I'm gonna have to put a little bit of a kink in there. But that kink being maybe farther back here will be nice because of the fact that it will free up a little space for any of the headers down here I may need to access, because I don't want the tube to be in the way. I thought about maybe getting rid of this 90, having it come straight out across and go into this tubing, or this port. But then going from here back to the GPU will be awkward looking. So I still think this makes the most sense in being kind of a parallel look to it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend the 90 a little past where I want it to be. That way I can trim the length to pull it back to where it needs to be. But then again, I have to account for that little kink. I guess what I'll do is I'll do the kink first. That way we're correct on this plane. And then when I trim it, after I do the 90, it'll pull it back. Because if I trim it first and then pull it back and then do the kink, it'll pull it back more and then it won't line up. All right, here we go. So the kink's a little bit farther down than I would want it, but the nice thing is I've got a lot of length still. So I could trim it back here more to pull it back here somewhere, because it's still kind of covering these pins, but I mean, there's still lots of space right here to get my hand in. But if we go down and look this way, you can see how it lines up with the fitting now. So yeah, it's not ideal in having that kink in there like that, but given the fact that there are so many angles in this build anyway, it really doesn't look out of place. It kind of gives it some character there. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend a 90 down there, and then I'm gonna cut the length of it here to bring the 90 in to where it needs to be. And the nice thing is if I'm off by a few millimeters and making it straight, this rad does still have some adjustment in it. All right, so there we go. There's the bottom tube in. Lines up, oh, sorry for that noise. Lines up perfectly with the fitting, as you can see. Fitting barely clears, but it clears. I also ended up dropping this down slightly because I ended up trimming the 90 where it goes down a little bit too far, which brought the whole thing too low and it didn't line up here. But if you remember the previous video, I talked about wanting more access to this port. So what that meant is I just had to redo this bend right here, which was just bending another 90 and trimming it into place. So here's the port I added there. Here's that 90 we did, well, I just redid. And then here's the bottom tube right there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and put my drain on the backside. And then, yeah, I think I'll put the GPU back in. We'll kind of take a look at how GPU tubing needs to go. And that'll probably end up being close to a wrap for today's video. Maybe I'll get one more bend done, we'll see. I just have to go from here to the GPU to CPU. And the thing I like about not having the ports on this side is the CPU outlet, which is on the right, gets to come over here and go up into the rad. And it gives me something here to kind of incorporate the Mega Man theme in. Remember, I'm trying to make the PC look like a Mega Man level, if that makes sense. All right, so that's what I've come up with for the GPU. You can see I did the double 90 again, 90-90. But I also did a double 90 on the GPU. Now, I was hoping that by having it come down and go over and over, so there's actually, yeah, there's two 90s on there. I was hoping that it was gonna line up perfectly, sorry for the squeaking, on this plane, but it doesn't. So you can see how I had to use those 90s down there to sort of go out at an angle. See, it's going to the left there, just so that I can use it as an offset to line up with the GPU. But the thing is, when you look at it from straight on, it really doesn't look bad. And if anything, it leaves this area kind of open down here, which is nice because you can see whatever is going on with the GPU or the motherboard. I still have the Mega Man figure. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna put in here. So what's left to do now, and it's gonna end up being in the next video, I'm gonna have to go from GPU to CPU. Now I considered doing something very odd. Because this is an active backplate, this is technically two blocks. So it's one block feeding into another block. So the reason why the inlet and the outlet are on the same side is because of the fact that it's going in there, coming out there, going in there, coming out there. So that's how the terminal works. It goes, whoop. Now I can go in there and it'll come out both sides like parallel. The difference is I would not be able to now have it come back out here so if I wanted to go parallel, parallel, parallel to the CPU, that won't work. It'll have to go out there into the CPU and out of the CPU somewhere, and then out of here and reconnect like in a Y with that port and that port. So this one and that one would have to connect with a Y somewhere and then go somewhere. What I had this weird idea of doing, but I'm not sure how well it would have worked, is literally put another port here and have the GPU come out and return to here, and then have the CPU come out and return to the rad, because the rad has to be in the loop somehow. So that would have been odd. It technically would have been a parallel GPU loop with half of the fluid going out to the reservoir and back, and then half of it going to there. But then I was like, effectively I'd be cutting the top radiator out of this exit, which means the only time any of the coolant coming out of here gets cooled is when it gets remixed, and then maybe some of it makes up here next time. So overall, it would still have a temperature it would equalize at, but I'm not sure how well it would work. So I have idea number 2, which is to go out of here and find a 120 distribution block to fill this fan hole, because I'm not gonna leave a fan there, and then have it go from there into the distro block, then out of the distro block into the CPU. So it'd be kind of neat having more stuff happen over here, and then Mega Man could be over here somewhere doing something. So that's kind of my idea on that one. Now, the other thing too is I went ahead and installed my drain plug. And so this is the Corsair, no, this is Primo Chill, sorry. This is Primo Chill drain plug. It's just a ball check valve or ball valve. And so it's on a swivel because it's female on both ends. So it's on a swivel that I installed, which is a nickel plated swivel. I had thought about doing a black one because it's right next to the black mount, the acetal mount here for the pump. But the issue is, if we take a look at the black fitting, all the black bits power fittings, because I only have these swivels or these twisties or whatever you call them in bits power, they have green O-rings. Now remember, that's a clear distro plate reservoir thing that I drilled in and added a port. So the green O-ring was really obvious sitting right there. So I went ahead and used nickel because it has a black O-ring and it will be a lot less in your face. And because I'm planning on using the Mystic Fog in here, we'll kind of blur that out anyway. But that was why I ended up going with that route. So where we sort of left off today, let me put this wire through the backside, that way it's not in your face and you can kind of see this build starting to come together. And I really do like how much room I'm gonna have back here for activities, to be honest. I redid the tube for here because I had to slide this down. I got the tube going out of the pump with the little like kink right there into a 90 bend down into the rad, then out of the rad up into the GPU. And so far, that tubing in the bottom is really kind of stealth. It really just sort of blends in down there, which is giving me a lot more room for activities. Anyway, that's where I'm gonna cut it for today. Thanks for letting me ramble on about ADD and all the stuff that I think a lot of people in the comment section can probably empathize with. I'm really looking forward to seeing the completion of this build. This is my best friend's build. He has never had a custom water-cooled build like this, so he is beyond excited for this build to be complete. And he was like, dang it, I'm on vacation and I can't play the computer when it's done. And I'm like, don't worry, it won't be done before you're back because it's me building it. something like that. All right, guys, thanks for watching as always. We'll see you in the next one.